Right, so let's begin. If you are a follower of mine, you would have seen this technique before, but if you're new to my channel and it's the first time you see me do stuff, I generally start most of my gel plate printing with a line framework, and I achieve this by doing a soft pastel pencil transfer because I can't get LaserJet images to work myself, and it's not something I'm particularly interested in. So I basically draw onto tracing paper with a soft pastel pencil. Sometimes I do charcoal as well, which allows me to transfer my own unique images. Now here I'm just tracing an image that I found of an old man's face, and I'm simply just drawing the details that I want to include so I have a nice outline, which then will become my framework so I can build up my image later on. Now, once all of the image has been traced, you then just simply turn over your tracing paper, put it onto your clean gel plate, give it a good rub over, and then just simply pull the tracing paper off and the pastel dust has transferred onto your plate. Now there's no need to do anything else to this pastel transferred image because the gel plate grabs hold of it and doesn't let go. So you don't need to fix it or anything like that. You can just then carry on with your next steps. Now the way I do gel plate prints is a one pull print. Now with a one pull print, you have to get into the mindset of working in reverse, so from front to back. Now the best way I can describe how to get your head around this is think of it of making a pizza. So normally you would do pizza base, then sauce, then cheese, then toppings. The toppings being your details. If you're doing a one pull print, you want to work in reverse, so you would do toppings first, then cheese, then sauce, and then base. So hopefully that's kind of made you visualize it a bit more. Now the thumbnail implies that I may have ruined my gel plate. Now the reason I put this is because before making this video I'd kind of come up with an idea of trying something that I hadn't seen on the gel plate done before. After I'd thought of it, I found that one person had done it, but I still wasn't sure if the technique would work, and that is basically doing direct collage onto my gel plate. Now the kind of risk was, if I put this amount of paper on my gel plate and glue it down, is it going to release back off again? But it's only a gel plate, so sometimes you got to try and experiment and, you know, be a bit risky. So basically what I was doing was mixing collaged papers that I'd made, which has different textures, patterns, designs, that sort of thing, combining it with direct painting processes on the gel plate and pulling it all as one print. When I make collage papers, specifically for this kind of idea, I generally work a lot of the time on rice papers. Now, the reason for this is rice paper is strong, it's thin, and when you apply coats of gloss medium, the gloss medium will then dry to a transparent finish. So you can, like as you see in this image, I've done this squiggly line, these dots. Where the rice paper has no paint on it, that has now become transparent. So it gives you the opportunity to build up different textural layers and patterned layers, stacking them one on top of each other. Now, you can use matte medium, but the problem with matte medium is it doesn't dry completely transparent. It goes translucent because matte medium dries to a slight milkiness. It has a slight cloudiness to it. Now for me, I don't personally like that, so that's why I use gloss medium, but I also don't really like the glossy finish that gloss medium gives on the finished print, but you can get over that through varnishing and that type of thing. Not everybody does that with their work, but when I'm making prints, I pretty much try and make a print that I can create as a finished artwork, which I could then try and go ahead and sell. So I will do stuff like varnishing, putting it onto cradled panels, that type of thing. So it's a simple case of you find like a piece of collage paper that you like, you would then put a layer of gloss medium on one surface of the collage paper, you place it within your framework where you want it to go, and then you cover the back with more gloss medium, and that adheres it nicely to the plate and the other collage papers. Now, a good practice to use with this technique is when you've got your traced line image, you can actually use that to kind of visualize what type of collage papers can go where. So, you can place that line work tracing paper over a bit of collage paper, see if a type of pattern or a mark might work. Then you can replicate the shape that you might want by retracing the drawing, which will then transfer that shape onto your collage paper, making it easier for cutting out and getting the right shape. Now, a little tip I'm sure you've heard before is keep those runoff sheets because they can be handy. So this piece of collage paper right now, that was actually a runoff sheet, and it just so happened it kind of looked like the person's clothing, so it looks a bit like a jacket with a t-shirt underneath. That was a little bonus. So keep your runoff sheets. I'm sure everybody does that does gel plate printing and does collage papers, but you can mix all sorts of different things when you're coming up with this type of process of making prints in this fashion. So I've got here a little bit of an old book page with some text. The text is illegible, it's like a part of a word, so it's just a case of ripping or cutting and then locating it on your print if you haven't used your tracing paper framework to already work that out, and then glue it down with your gloss medium. Now, it's probably quite a good idea if you're just trying this first off to not get too busy, so I would keep it to a minimum of collage papers on top of each other just to begin with. Here, when I was talking about layering, you can see I've just got this bit of rice paper here that has just got some splashed ink on it. So I basically traced the shape of his hat. I've then transferred that onto the collage paper. I then make sure it fits by just placing it on gently, taking it off, covering the one surface with gloss medium, and then putting another layer of gloss medium on the top. Now, because that paper has become transparent where the splashes aren't, I am now putting a second layer of these line marks over the top or behind it, as it were, because you're working in reverse, and doing the same again, gloss media on both surfaces. With this technique, you can make it as difficult or complex as you like, or you can make it as simple as you like. So you could just do something like this. You could just do a big piece for the background, and that's it, if that's what you wanted to do. If you're not that comfortable with doing multiple layers of collage papers and not being able to see what you are putting down because you're working in a reverse fashion, then it doesn't matter. You just do what you feel comfortable with and gradually build up your skill level. But this technique's brilliant. You can do some really cool and really fun things, and it's all guesswork. This is why I love gel printing, because it's the guesswork. You kind of imagine what it's going to look like unless you keep peeking underneath your gel plate, which is something I never do. You're not going to know until you pull it. And that's where the excitement is and the curiosity comes from and the magic happens. And that's what brings me back time and time again to gel printing. So now, basically, the gloss medium dries pretty quickly. These layers here are pretty dry. So now I'm blocking in with acrylic paint. Now, see, because those two previous layers had transparent elements to them, this paint layer is going to show through the final print, but it's going to be the background for the two textures it's behind. The same with the face color, this pink. All those pieces of pattern and shape and bits that I've already put on is going to be at the forefront, and the pink is just filling in the negative spaces that haven't got anything on. Now, I put on quite thick layers of paint. I actually do a double layer of paint. I let one layer dry and then I put another layer on after, because I like a uniform covering of paint. I don't particularly want streaks, and this won't become an issue when you're coming to pull the print as long as you allow a decent amount of time for drying. This little bit of yellow here is just because I misaligned the collage paper and I didn't want this kind of little strip with no paint. I'm just pulling on mixed media paper. It's by Canson. It's called Canson Imagine mixed media paper. It's like 200 GSM. I'm pulling with a matte gel. Now, this is fairly thick if you're not sure. It's basically acrylic without pigment. So I put on a decent liberal amount, brayer it on smoothly. Because you've got slightly different levels because of the collage paper, you've got to make sure you've got enough gel medium to cover everything. So I'd say be more generous than less to make sure this works. Then you put your paper on, give it a good rub over. I've got a barron on the side there. I use that, and then I put the books on. Now I left that to dry for 24 hours. Drying is the #1 key for a one pool print. I can't stress that enough. If you leave it a good while to dry, you will have a really good success rate of pulling clean pulls. A little tip, make sure you ease off all the way around the sides and do it nice and slowly as you pull. As you can see, that's what I'm doing here. It's all come off. Nothing is left on the gel plate, apart from a little bit of the pastel pencil, which you always get, which you can remove with mineral oil. It's not a problem. I think when it comes to gel plate printing, you just got to think outside of the box. Be brave. It's all about experimenting. And if you're scared and you're not willing to take that risk, you never know. You might be missing out on something that's really special. And at the end of the day, it's only a gel plate. So do it, goddammit.